Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are entrenched right now into the spring of 2024, and today I'm going to be giving an update on Donald Trump's potential best case scenario when it comes to the 2024 election. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is show some context to these potential predictions, just looking at kind of an overview of all the different swing states, with both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania being completely toss-ups. I would also consider Michigan, even though the polls have Trump up by 3, to be a complete toss-up. You've got Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, I would say, leaning Trump. Also potentially Nevada, Trump +3 there. There have been some recent polls that have come out that are more favorable towards Biden, but unless we see a consistent 3 or 4 week stretch of not only the polls, but also the approval rating improving for Biden, unless we see that, I don't think Trump has a whole lot to be concerned about. We would have to see some type of reversal where it would be, multiple weeks where polls come out more favorably towards Biden. And I do think in general, people are going to be galvanized around Biden. He's the obvious Democratic choice, and a lot of these young people who try and act too cool, like, oh, they don't like Biden or Trump because they're both older, we all know they'll scatter into their hole and vote for Biden no matter what. That's just the reality of the situation. I understand it. Conservatives do the same thing. It is politics in America in 2024, but you can see the Electoral College prediction right now based on where we're at. It's got Trump at 312, Biden at 226, very similar to Trump's win over Hillary. See, this is the current 2024 consensus according to 270 to win, with Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia being swing states. The big state here, Florida, officially Republican. Also, they do have North Carolina leaning Republican, which I would agree with based on 2020 and 2016 and Trump's approval rating versus what it was in 2020 against Biden and 2016 against Hillary. Trump right now is a lot more favorable versus Biden in 2024 than he was in 2020, yet he still won the state in 2020. Theoretically, it would be a lot easier for him to win the state in 2024 unless we see a major reversal in terms of Biden's approval rating. But the swing states, I would mainly agree with the swing states. I would say at this point, based on polling, you could put, slight lean conservative for both Georgia and Arizona, along with possibly Nevada. The 3 Rust Belt states have to be swings at this point. This is the realistic scenario where, based on the polling, this is what the final would be. Trump at 312, Biden at 226, with Trump sweeping all of the swing states because he's leading in basically all the swing states. And remember, Trump could lose several of these states with him being over 300. You only need 270, so he could lose Pennsylvania. He could also lose Michigan and still win the election. That's why states like Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona are so important. It completely opens up Trump's math when it comes to the Rust Belt, and you could lose multiple Rust Belt states. If you can take Nevada and Arizona along with Georgia, Georgia is extremely important for Trump to take back in 2024. If you do that, you take those 3 states, kind of the golden sweep with those 3, you could potentially lose 2 Rust Belt states and still win the election relatively easily, depending. And then when it comes to Trump's best case scenario right now, I would include Minnesota. That is the one state where if you wanted to expand the math even further than just Nevada, Arizona, and the Rust Belt, you could also say Minnesota based off the early polling. With Biden only being up by 3 or 4, I don't think it's likely, but we've all talked about the idea, what are the next states for Trump? If he really surges, it would be Minnesota and it would be Virginia. Virginia, they can vote for Republicans. We saw it with Glenn Youngkin. I do not think it's likely. I think Minnesota is more probable, even with the mass population center in Minneapolis. I think Minnesota, because a lot of American voters, there's just no motivation to vote for Biden. It's more of an anti-Trump campaign rather than a pro-Biden one. So Minnesota would be the one state where if Trump wanted to make his math even easier, Minnesota and then maybe Virginia, but I can't put it in a Trump best case scenario until I get more polling on it. If we get a few more polls in the coming weeks that are very close in Virginia, Trump could certainly be over 330 in terms of an absolute best case scenario. And then I do also have Trump winning the one congressional district in Nebraska. He's going to be a slight underdog in terms of that. Statewide Nebraska, Trump's easily going to win. And then also possibly winning Maine, which is a pure swing state. You could also make the argument in an absolute best case scenario, New Hampshire as well. But I do tend to think New Hampshire, with it being a smaller state, it tends to lean Democrat. At least that's the vibe I get from it. And Biden, I think it'll be easier for him to win that with the lower population, but we will see. Either way, right now, a Trump-based case would be right around 325 to 330. There's a lot of people that want a trouncing. They'd love to see a state like New York. They'd love to see a state like maybe New Mexico or Colorado. It's just extremely unlikely. That's just not the way the Electoral College works over a 4-year swing. It's not going to happen unless something comes out completely catastrophic against Biden. You're looking at Trump's ceiling being around 330 right now, unless new polling comes out maybe out of Virginia. Certainly it would be a very dominant victory, well over 300 electoral votes, and actually performing better than he did against Hillary. And I do think he's going to perform better in terms of popular vote this year than he did back in 2016 when he lost to Hillary by 3 million votes in terms of that. The other news we do have is RFK Jr. picking a VP, and a lot of people coming out. Yes, it does seem like this is potentially good for conservatives. Guys, I do want to caution people when it comes to VP in general, whether it's Trump's VP, Kamala Harris, RFK Jr.'s, they really don't matter all that much, but certainly this woman, Nicole Shanahan, being a liberal, it's not going to appeal to conservatives, right? So you would think that RFK Jr. possibly poaching some votes from the Democrats. This article has an interesting swing to the whole thing, saying RFK Jr. strategically picked her, knowing she's left wing, as a way to get the Democrats riled up and use campaign funds to try and smear RFK or something. It's kind of strange, but either way, I would say it's a slight positive for Republicans, although let's be honest, this is not the biggest thing in the world. And then we've got this Minnesota. Speaking of Minnesota, right? Their AG, Attorney General, comes out and says on car theft, "We are investigating 2 automakers. Their cars are too easy to steal for young people." So I want to explain the dynamic, what's going on with big cities in this country. And I'm not going to just smear big cities, because when I was younger, I went to Chicago. There's some great parts of Chicago. I'm sure there still are. It's a huge city. The gist of it is these big cities can be amazing. The problem is it's almost like the Twilight Zone. They're all extremely liberal. They have terrible crime issues. The only real way to rid yourself of horrible crime problems is to get really tough on crime and put a lot of people in jail. The issue is a lot of these liberal leaders, mayors, they view that as racist because many of the people getting arrested are minorities. So they say that, well, minorities have to steal because they've been disenfranchised, because America is racist and white men always succeed, and that's why they have to steal. We have to be soft on it. When in reality, that's not how you can run a society. If you go soft on crime, it will incentivize more crime, and it will inevitably make your cities hellholes. And that's what we're seeing with Chicago, San Francisco, anywhere there's a really liberal city. The other issue is, and this kind of compounds it, it's the idea of that woman, Lori Lightfoot. Do you guys remember her? She was the former mayor of Chicago, and everyone hated her. And it was probably the funniest thing, or maybe the saddest thing I've ever seen. They got her out. They voted her out. And everyone was excited on Twitter. It was like, wow, she's finally gone. And then someone said that, oh, the dude that they installed is actually softer on crime or worse on crime than she was. And the reason that happens is because these people cannot admit that their type of governance just doesn't work. The idea where you have a society that has a big crime issue, high population center, a lot of theft going on, the idea that you would say, oh, we have to make it easier for people to steal because we're a racist society. They've been disenfranchised, so let's just allow them to steal, and that's somehow going to balance things and make your society livable. These cities are total cesspools because they can't admit how they're governing them is so wrong. And you have all these young liberals. They've got 2 options. You either leave, and we've seen a lot of them leave. We saw the exodus from California, from San Francisco, a lot of those people going to Texas. Of course, they're still liberal, right? They still vote for the same stuff that got them in that mess, or they stay and they just live in a shithole. Those are really their only two options. And I say that, not every place in New York City is a shithole. There are amazing areas of the city. It's a huge city. I get it. But in general, none of this is going to improve when you incentivize crime and you're soft on crime. You need someone to go in there and say, this is done. We're not dealing with it. I understand people feel disenfranchised. I understand there's poverty. I get it. But we cannot allow you to just steal stuff. It incentivizes a society that's just going to fall apart. You can't do it. It's not conducive of a winning long-term society. And then you've got like these attorney generals coming out and saying it's cars' fault. Like, dude, bud. Like, you want to talk about the amount of cope that's involved in saying, oh, there's a lot of crime. It's the auto manufacturers. It's easy to steal. No, it's your laws. You're soft on it, so it makes it easier. And it's like the whole idea where you can steal $900 worth of stuff. Okay, so this is where it gets really crazy. And this is just the policy here. What are we doing? You've got San Francisco, who allows you to steal $900 worth of stuff. And it's like, oh, it's all good. People that need it, they're going to take it. That's not how this works. If you allow people to steal crap from stores, the stores are going to become either jails, which we've seen people go into Target and film in San Francisco or in these bigger cities. And it's just, you can't even access anything. You have to get a key to access it. Now some of the stores, it's all remote. You have to order everything, and then the people will go pick it out aisle by aisle, unlock everything, and get it for you. That's either going to be the future. You're going to live in jail stores where Target becomes this jail because they're afraid of people stealing $900 and getting away with it. Or the second option is they're just going to move. And then, of course, the stores are going to be accused of being racist for leaving areas where they get robbed all the time. It's just not a winning idea. The idea that you're going to be soft on crime when you've got horrible crime, it will inevitably incentivize crime, which will cause all sorts of issues. So that is the problem with that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.